I mean, and it hasn't even been like 3 months. Can you believe it?
Yep. But it's already been a really, shall we say, eventful off season.
Oh man, a lot of moving parts. Definitely, that's for sure, dude. But aside from that, the Dodgers.
Yeah.
They failed. You know, ruined my hopes of a postseason World Series championship for LA, which I'm a big Dodger fan.
Yeah.
But we have Lakers season to look forward to. Maybe
I don't know.
We'll see.
We'll see.
We need one of those magic 8 balls to see what's going on.
I'm Lakers for life, but I'm also very realistic about what I see in terms of how the team is made up. So we'll just wait and see. Hopefully they can coalesce.
Yeah, we shall see. Mm-hmm. But anyways, back to
how are your Raiders doing, by the way?
Dude,
they won a game finally.
Dude, thanks, man. We're talking about the Dodgers and Lakers, and now you got to bring in the Raiders. Like, stake right through my heart, man. Hopefully they're gonna get things back on track and go undefeated the rest of the season and then win the Super Bowl. But we'll see. So, but anyways, like we're back on the podcast. So let's not. Time is of the essence. We don't want to run into our normal 3-hour time.
Exactly. We'll see how this one goes.
But tonight we are lucky. In fact, I say tonight because it's 7:00 here, a little after 7 on the Pacific Coast. But we are lucky. We're talking about the off-season moves, and we're fortunate enough to have the new percussion caption head of the Blue Stars.
Yep, absolutely. Very excited.
So, will you help me welcome Mr. Greg Power?
Welcome to the shop, Greg.
Hey guys.
How you doing, man?
Hey, thanks for having me on. And battery caption head.
Battery caption head.
Yeah,
right.
Specifically battery caption. So.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So
super excited.
Yeah. Before we start and get into anything, I want to take a couple moments to acknowledge, the passing of a true icon of the activity. Tom Float. If there is a Mount Rushmore of marching percussion,
absolutely.
The foundation of what is done today is like he is a major part of that.
I think I'm sure that students, members today, and even staff today are mindful of the fact that somebody had to come up with all this stuff that we do. That it wasn't just made up out of thin air. And you grid things, you play it 4-2-1, you move the accent, right? Somebody had to come up with that stuff, and Tom was one of those guys who, in the very early days of this activity, laid this amazing foundation, right? Not just of like how to do that, but how to be really successful and a really funny and amazing guy, right?
Yeah.
Along the way. The one thing I want to say about that is I'm glad that we're acknowledging Tom, and I'm sure there will be more of that to come. But this activity, at least the modern version of this activity, is about 50 years old.
Yeah.
And what comes with that is the fact that a lot of people who laid the foundation for this activity, a lot of whom are still involved with this activity, are getting on in years. And what I would like to see is that they get acknowledged and for everything that they've done for this activity and us while they're still around.
Yes.
So if you know them, if you have those people in your life, whether they be personal teachers, mentors, whether they be some of the icons of the activity, make sure that they know that you appreciate them and the influence that they've had, and you acknowledge their contribution while they're still here.
Yes.
Because that really, really, I think that really matters.
Yeah. And it shouldn't have to be like we wait till something happens and then
exactly
we start memorializing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But love to Catherine.
Much love to Catherine and all of his former students and everybody that he's touched so many people.
He's pretty much, everybody can trace a line back to him.
And that's, it's funny, with the 6 degrees to Tom Float, in 6 steps, I'm sure everybody can make their way
absolutely
to Tom, so.
Like we mentioned before, this has been, I would say, probably one of the most active off seasons. Every off season, drum corps make adjustments to try to get better, but I feel like a lot happened with people going from one corps to another corps, new staff being brought in, and Greg has this amazing opportunity now with Blue Stars. And I feel like, Greg, we in Southern California, we know who you are. We're very aware of you because you've been teaching here for a while, especially like the schools and stuff like that. And you've been on staff with some of the independent groups, but it's a big deal,
Definitely. Yeah. I couldn't believe it when I got the call from Tony Nunez specifically. And I'm just so looking forward to the audition season.
Yeah.
And we've already been talking as a full staff and about how monumental this is going to be.
Well, I think people should be really excited about. I mean, you announced that staff, and everybody's eyes go, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I see what's going on over there. But before we get into all that, let's go back. Let's go back to
the roots.
To the roots. Like, why are you doing this? Like, why band? Like, what started it all for you? And where'd you grow up?
Yeah, where are you from?
I'm from the Pacific Northwest, born in Houston, Texas, but then grew up in Washington, but in Eastern Washington. My dad was a professor at Washington State University. It's a small little college town. So my first experience of drumline was the college drumline at Washington State.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so we would go to all the football games on Saturday, and that was my favorite part of the game from a young age. So immediately, that was my connection to marching percussion.
Like, about what age do you remember like doing all that?
Oh
man, I must have been 6 or 7 or.
Can you remember what it actually felt like to like your little brain just going like, what is that? This is amazing.
Yeah, it was such an interesting. It was like an enigma to me. I couldn't figure out how they were able to play what they were playing. And to produce that. From a distance, it's this strange sound that you can't really reproduce. It's not often used in other contexts. And then you get up close, and you can feel the vibration of the instruments, and they, just the vibe of the crowd and the energy that's lifted by all the drummers.
Yeah.
So immediately it was like, oh, this seems really awesome. But I was a cellist first. So I started cello in 3rd grade, and I only did that until about 8th grade, and then that's when I got a drum set. Just couldn't stay away from the drums, so I started doing drum lessons.
That's
like privately.
Cool. Yes.
Is the marching percussion scene there in Washington? Is it pretty big, or is it like
on the coastal side, it is.
Like by Seattle? Like
there's some bigger high schools, bigger bands. We actually didn't have a competitive marching band at my high school.
Oh, so even in high school you weren't?
No, it just had a pep band that would play at the games in the stands. And then we did some parades.
Okay.
But yeah, we didn't have like the competitive scene for our school.
So what was your first exposure then to, let's say, marching percussion as we know it, as far as like the activity? Like, when did you know that existed?
Right. So I went to the Washington State, stayed in the town, and made the drum line. And some of the guys there marched at Cascades, and some of them marched Academy when Glenn Crosby was there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So how old were you during this time when you started like drumming the Washington State?
So I was a jazz drum set player, and then I decided to go to Washington State for music.
Oh, okay.
And percussion performance. Originally thought I was going to do kit, but then I thought, well, maybe I should branch out. I think that will make me more successful.
So you really didn't do the marching percussion until you were in college?
Wow,
I was learning college band.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
The elevator drill was difficult for me.
maybe though the right way, you went about it the right way. You were a musician first.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Well,
I did have that drum set background, so coordination of the limbs.
Right.
And then quads seemed to be the closest to drum set.
Got it.
So it's funny. I had an amazing private lesson instructor who taught the drumline at U of I, Quentin DeWitt, and he was very structured in all my lessons, going up until that time when I auditioned for the drumline. I went out for snare, and like, oh my gosh, he can't even get the sticks out or the traditional grip.
Right.
Let's put him on cymbals, and I was like, hey, I learned all the quad stuff. And so then they threw me on quads, and it was like, oh, why didn't you just go to quads in the first place?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was there any sort of, I don't know if you would call it culture shock, but trying to like go from what you had learned before, right? Because you learned it like musically and stuff like that before, but actually like doing it in a big line like that is a whole nother thing.
Oh yeah, that was the college band. There was the upper echelon.
Mm-hmm.
That I didn't think it could get any, more intense than that.
So when they start talking about Cascades and the Academy, you're like, are you like, what's that?
Exactly.
Like it gets better than
and
this?
so yeah, and then that's when I got introduced to drum corps. We would go over to their house and we would drum some of our exercises, and we'd play old Gussick exercises and old SCV exercises. Big SCV fans over there, Washington State, which makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And we would watch old vids, and that's when I saw the original Scheherazade SCV show.
Wow.
Wait, so you think that's old?
Yeah, I know that. I was thinking about that on the way over.
No,
I was like,
that's cool. Yeah,
old school.
Yeah.
Like 2004.
yeah. That's funny. But what's funny is it is now. Shoot, even like '08 is old school. If you in 2010,
Yep.
it's over a decade old. So around what year was this that you were?
So that would I graduated in 2010. So it's probably like 2011 or 2010 or so.
Okay.
Yeah. So you were watching the real old school, the original Scheherazade.
Man, you graduated high school in 2010.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm 30 right now.
That's
currently.
cool. There's like a lot of youth, like right around 30-year-olds right now, really coming up in the activity, and it's cool to see.
Yeah,
So-
I definitely still feel very young and have a lot to learn.
Hold on. Let me break it to you real quick. 30 is still really young.
Good.
It is, yeah. There's a long way to go still. When did you decide that you're actually going to try out for a group?
Like, what was your first big group that you tried out for?
So we actually had a little bit more of a core style approach rather than like a show style at Washington State. That was kind of driven by the members and the drumline instructor Brent Edwards at the time.
Where did he march at? Where was he?
And he actually didn't march.
No?
He was just very enthusiastic about that. Really good concert percussionist.
That's cool.
Built the culture at Washington State. Like it's such an island that everybody very enthusiastic about that type of thing. Like always hung out. Like we did camping trips together, and that became my friend group. So it was a very strong culture. So we drummed together all the time, and that's how I got good, was drumming with the guys from Academy. Sure. And then they encouraged me to go to Cascades. And so in 2011, I went to audition for Cascades and barely made it. That was like the last quad in.
So it's their fault.
Yep.
It's their fault that they let you in.
Exactly.
Who was teaching there at the time?
That was AJ Pace was his first year, and
Okay.
Travis Opencheski was the quad instructor
Okay.
at the time. Yeah.
And at this time, you're still like doing full-on percussion stuff, right? Like mallets and everything. Like that.
Yeah. And trying to catch up on mallets. I was mostly a drum set player. So.
Yeah.
Were you a music major for all that? Okay. Got it.
Yeah, and I was kind of trying to do double and cello and concert percussion at the time.
Wait. You're still playing cello also?
Let's go.
Wow.
Do you have a cello
Yeah.
at home still?
Can you still play?
Can you break it out?
Oh yeah, definitely.
You're kidding me. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, in fact, that was my main thing, and I really was thinking about doing that. And I was in the Washington State String Quartet that would perform at weddings and gigs and stuff, and that was a good source of income for me while I was in college. And then, so I actually thought there was more of a future in that. And I was like, the drumming is fun.
Right.
This is my friend group.
Like, if you wanted to, you could still probably go play weddings and stuff and make some good money.
I'm definitely way more rusty now. I'll say I don't have as much time anymore. But so then I did March Cascades in 2011.
Okay.
And that was
What was
when
that
I saw
experience
my
like?
first
Yeah.
live drum corps. So
Right, 'cause you have to go out on tour and do all that. Was again though, going from college band to drum corps, was that a big leap?
The marching was.
Okay.
Learning all the dots. But the drumming was very similar because of the style that we had at Washington State. But yeah, I was feather tapping. That was the main thing, was the amount of, just velocity that you need for your drum to carry.
Yeah.
Even at the low end, to the stands and to blend with the other marching percussionists who are used to heavy implements. Like that was my main issue, and Travis got me to fix that.
To
essentially
play through the drum.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
To play with a little more weight and fullness. And
do you feel like even though that was a little bit of like a thing you had to adjust, right, when you came into it, but was there anything about your background, because obviously it was pretty extensive, that you felt like gave you something that maybe some other players didn't have, or that really like became a part of like how you were going to blend and sort of jump and do this thing,
Yeah, I felt like through my whole percussion career, study, whatever, cello made it so easy to not set any limitations to percussion. Like the fact that I didn't have to worry about intonation, it felt very easy to progress. And there were certain things about cello where when you're constantly worried about that intonation, you would also forget about your technique. And, there's only so many things you can focus on at the same time. And I felt almost like free to just focus on my approach to playing. And I knew that the instrument was going to be consistent in pitch and in tone as long as I struck it the right way.
So, like, George does some out-of-the-box teaching stuff.
Definitely.
We've talked about it before.
So
that's awesome.
Now let me ask you this. With your cello background, have you brought anything out of the box from that into your teaching? Mm-hmm. And can you give us some examples?
Yeah, the lyricism of the cello and in my connection to music can be very connected to like a monophonic melody and how I hear things. So when you're in a string quartet, a lot of the music comes out through legato motion. And I think all of those things are applied to percussion, even though there's no sustain in like a marimba. You see those marimbaists using a lot of the same gestural motions and sense of interpretation and of a melodic phrase as if it were sustained. So I mean, and then in drumming too, like the appreciation of a long phrase, essentially, like where something comes and goes, similar to how an orchestra would do it. I'm very partial to that in battery writing or in teaching that. So I think, dynamics.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Things like that.
It's phrasing is not anything that I feel like phrasing is something that I learned by rote, by mimicry, mm-hmm. right? It was just kind of like you have the notes on the page, but you don't necessarily want to play them like an MP3 output, right? There's emphasis. There's you lean in a little bit here. You do a little bit of this, and the phrase, it adds that dimension of like this is what was intended, right? When I wrote it. Do you have a way to open students up to that maybe don't see that? Where they're like, you're like, what? No, I want you to, on this it should sound a little more like this, or I want you to lean in a little bit, and this is the way it should feel,
Definitely would steal a certain teaching idea from the classical world, and that is maybe there are limitations in how you can perform your instrument where you can't express how you want it to sound yet, but if you were just to vocalize it or to sing it, or something that's more natural that we've practiced since we were young, just being able to say it out loud in the way, and to express it that way before your hands can. I think I use that all the time. Because usually then that helps them solidify like, oh, how I'm thinking about it in my head it's actually, in reality, this is what it is. When they actually sing it out loud, it might be different than what they think it is. Like if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It makes it human instead of like math or something
right.
like that in their head. Yeah.
It makes it something physical, mm-hmm. and then we can talk about it, and then try to recreate that with the implements.
That's great. That's great.
So,
okay, let's get back to Cascades. You were about to get into seeing other drum corps and seeing drum corps live
for the first time, right? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was when I that
And
was
like every night,
yeah,
on tour.
That is the funniest thing because it was right before the YouTube. Like YouTube was starting to happen right around that 2010, maybe earlier. I don't know, but wasn't really locked into that. Didn't have a smartphone until like college or whatever.
Yeah. I don't even think they were a thing. Yeah.
But so I've been seeing all these band performances, Washington State, which is actually a pretty phenomenal college drumline, I think. And then seeing from like almost a similar perspective to where I would be at the games, but it was with Cascades. I saw Cavi's Extraordinary, like that 2011.
2011,
okay,
yeah.
Yeah, and that was the first
yeah.
drum corps show I saw live.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And it was early season. I think they were in the Northwest at the time. And immediately noticed the bass drums. Like, that's the first thing I get. And I'm like, what was that? Right. Like, it's like, okay, this is the best. the way I felt. I don't know. It's almost indescribable.
Did you have a favorite corps back then in the early?
That year was immediately Cavaliers. It's like, oh, that sounds like an exercise, but it's like a groove. And then I saw BD immediately after that. I was like, oh my gosh, super cool.
Yeah. You were about to say it's indescribable what it felt like. We all know. Everybody who's done this, when your first exposure, it's like, what is going on? What is this? Am I able to do that? Will I be able to do that, eventually? And it seems a little bit like, or were you like, I'm definitely going to do that? I'm definitely going to get to that level? Or were you like, I don't know if like, how can you get there?
I think that's an interesting thing when you're from a smaller town. I didn't even expect to be doing Cascades, or didn't think that I would ever be good enough for that. There wasn't any sort of confidence built up to be like, it was just like, wow, I'm so lucky to even be seeing this performance, And I think that can happen everywhere, but especially when you're in some sort of chamber of, development. And I already had thought I had gotten to the point of like, well, they can't get much better than this. I think everybody experiences that a little bit in high school. Like, man, we're killing it.
We just won sweepstakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And that's great. I mean, that's really important to feel that sense of accomplishment. But it was really cool to open up to other possibilities, sound production, especially in marching percussion, where it's just so aligned. But it's like vibrations happening, like a single, like just monolith. It's so exciting. It's like doesn't seem possible for human beings to be able to do that.
So, what was the next like step for you after that first Cascades marching year? Did you march Cascades again the next year or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So actually, funny. It was like definitely knew I wanted to do drum corps. It was like, man, because I love college band. So I immediately got home and started practicing, learning licks, snare science. I learned like the Blue Coats quad lick from 2011. That was like my first YouTube video and stuff like that. And then did Cascades again in 2012. It's like the section leader. I tried out for Blue Stars 2012.
Oh, really?
Which was I wanted to go for another corps, and I was just trying to decide on one.
Who was Blue Stars at that time?
Tom Ongst.
Was it
Was
Ongst?
Ongst?
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
the Ongst era?
Yeah.
That was like his last year there, right? Yeah.
I think so, yeah. But yeah, I had my individual audition with Tom Ongst.
Mm-hmm.
That was scary.
Yeah, of course.
It went okay. It was not the best.
Did you get a callback or?
I think so. I decided to just go back to Cascades. I was
Cascades.
pretty excited about being a vet, so I didn't go to anything.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. Might not have.
What made you go to Blue Stars that year?
I think I enjoyed their performance the year before, and then I definitely was thinking. It was interesting. I was thinking like, I want to try to move up, and I didn't really know what was better. I just knew what the placements were. It was like, okay, let's
Sure.
try to go somewhere that's kind of a middle, but is in finals. I think, because everybody does love to march like a finals performance.
That's like I think that's like the natural progression for a lot of people. It's the same mindset. It's like, okay, well, let me see if I can make this step before I get to where my destination is that I want to be. So that's cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to experience another culture too, like some other thing. And when Tom Monks was there, it's like, oh my gosh, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
To potentially get to learn from him. So.
Had you started doing any of the winter drumline then?
So there weren't any winter drumline. The closest one was Oregon Crusaders.
Yep.
That was like, I don't know, 8 or 9 hours away.
Yeah.
So I almost thought about doing it. I was like,
wow,
maybe there's a way, but no.
But you also were juggling school at that time as well.
So we actually at Washington State we started it was informal but indoor kind of performance group, and I think it started before I got there actually. So we call it like the spring line, and we would do performances with the percussion ensemble in their concert.
Okay, cool.
And that was a big hit. So we did kind of winter style production, but we wouldn't march. We just play like a standstill marching percussion show, written by Brent. So yeah.
That's cool. That's like old school right there.
Yeah, we used to do that.
That was like the roots of winter drumline is that, at least here in Southern California.
Yeah, and then now they're doing I know Texas.
Yeah.
The drumline competition's super cool.
Yeah.
Wish we did that.
We keep saying George and I keep saying we're gonna go out there one of these years and
we haven't document, film some lots and stuff out there, because there's some like really quality playing that's going on out there.
It's fun to hear it with just stand still. Everybody playing super relaxed.
Yeah, Texas is like on a different level in a lot of ways, but it's cool. One of these years.
That'd be cool.
We'll make the trip.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple years of Cascades. What is the next step for you?
So then I decided, I saw the staff change at Blue Stars, and
was that when John and Ian went over there?
It was like Pulse Percussion's going to Blue Stars, and I was a big YouTube person by that point. And I had seen 2010 Pulse and Rhythm X more times than I could count. Like those are my two favorite videos on YouTube. Those two, and it was kind of fun to catch up on the drama in the comments, like, Rhythm X should have won, and it was like, but Pulse was so clean, but Rhythm X, and so it was kind of fun to like get involved with I had no idea about the WGI competition, but I'm seeing this online community, a forum, like Snare Science, people discussing.
There was some passion there.
Yeah,
there was
exactly.
People really caring about
Fandom.
What's going on. Right.
It's kind of like the sports world.
Yeah.
And so I was like, whoa, that's one of the top teams, Pulse. So I was like, well, I already went before, go again. But but it was almost more similar than what I was used to learning style-wise.
Yeah.
Well, because they had that Murray Gussick basis for a lot of the stuff that they did, and you were saying you had that at school, right?
Yeah, that was kind of our move. Like Glenn, kind of he probably doesn't even know this, but with Brent too, like kind of. They influenced the line to play that way that they did at Academy that year, which was kind of that Pulse approach.
And that ended up there up in Washington in a
kind
roundabout
of
way.
West
Yeah.
Kind of approach.
So you tried out for the 2013 line.
And John loves to tell this story, but he definitely did not want to take me that year. It was like every single person in the line had done indoor. And they're like, man, we just got to make sure everybody's experienced enough for this first year to go well. And I was kind of an outsider. And with good reason. It's like, does he have enough experience, to do this kind of style? I'm like, well, he got a lot better at the last camp. But yeah, I had a secret weapon, which was at my college band at school, we had the choir room, and I would go at like 11 at night, and nobody was around, and it's giant mirror, and there was enough room to march and play. And then I would just get our metronome, Dr. Beat, from the college band.
And get those reps in.
Yeah, and I would just get a ton of reps with the mirror and everything. So.
Did you have anybody on staff advocating for you? Was there anybody that was like...
Yeah, the quad staff, Brian Riley and Paul Weber. We're like, man, he's getting a lot better, and he's really taking in comments and trying to learn the style and the approach.
Right.
So they contracted everybody, and then they told me like, hey, can you make progress videos? We're not going to quite contract you yet. We want to make sure that you're going to be okay and hang. And I was definitely the worst for
Dude,
sure.
how did you make videos back then? Because like cameras went like cell phone. Was it like a flip phone camera or like?
I think at that point, this was 2013.
Yeah.
I might have had my first iPhone at that point,
Okay.
or I think so.
Do you look back on that initial experience, and considering like this is what the staff had to talk about and go through and like what they thought, do you look at that with new eyes now that you're on staff?
Oh, definitely.
You know?
Yeah, it's so hard being on the staff side because you have all these dedicated individuals
Right.
in so few spots, and you also want the group to be in the best.
And you have people you know and people
Right.
you don't know.
Right.
And with the people you don't know, how do you find out what you need to know? You know, that's like a whole
Right,
that's a
and
whole
if they've
thing.
marched somewhere, you can ask about them.
Right.
But if they haven't done any of that, where you don't know anything about them, drum corps is a long time. It's like you hope that person can fit into whatever the vision is and be totally down the whole time. So trying to eliminate variables as a staff.
Right.
But from my personal background, I do believe that, you know, in giving those people a chance, people from the outside that are looking for something completely different,
Yeah.
not quite from the same mold, but looking to mold into that.
What do
new
you
identity.
think
So,
you showed them? What do you think you personally showed them at that time that made them more comfortable with being like, okay, come with us. You're in.
Yeah, I think it was the incessant amount of like I had sent them a lot of videos, like more than they asked for. I'm sure it was pretty annoying, but it helped me have it. The recording thing is great because it's like, okay, I'm going to practice until I get a good recording. So, you know, it was like a goal-based practice where I would just keep going until I was like, okay, that's good enough to send to them. And so that would usually be a longer period of time than if I had just set out to get better that night. So it actually really worked well. It was like my first video assignment. And now that's pretty common to do the video assignment thing at a lot of these groups. But they was like very personalized. Like, okay, that was good. Let's, you know, here's what you're bad at. And so it was kind of great. Like by the time we got to the season, I felt completely prepared. I didn't feel like that far behind because they're straight up like, here, do tap pyramid, the stuff that you're struggling with using the wrist instead of just finger twitch, you know? So that was super. I mean, that was probably one of the most beneficial times for me in my development was in preparation for 2013.
Was
2013
was 2013 your age out year?
And then I had an age out year in 2014.
Oh, so 2014 year. So this is your first year with Blue Stars and the John and Ian and the Pulse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that was another experience, kind of like that first time seeing Cavies, was seeing how Blue Stars rehearsed.
Right.
And
Yeah, because it was different.
Yes, Cascades was really that upped the game for me. Is like, wow, you can really put your body through a lot physically to do this. And then Blue Stars was like, oh my gosh, the type of information that, because of the level of the player, the type of information we're getting is very specific, and it reminds me of. It seems like we can get even more detailed than like a college ensemble sometimes. In the way that we do it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I would compare it to that same experience, a university symphonic group and our percussion ensemble. But a lot more of it is related to trying to line things up across a field, which is an awesome challenge.
Right.
Interesting
Like
too, you know?
in terms of the level you can get to in detail in achieving a really specific purpose, which drum corps, the marching percussion activity has in general. We can get really in there with the level of comments that we give to try to get the student there.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So that was the thing at Blue Stars for sure.
How did you guys end up placing percussion-wise that year? Because it was like a first for you, and it was also a first for those.
Oh
guys.
man, that was a hype. So the group was trying to get back into finals, and our highest placement I think was semifinals. We just went out there, and that line was definitely known for their performance energy. Like that was the biggest thing on the tapes. It's like, oh my gosh, they're going crazy. It was like out of control sometimes, in kind of a good way. We were there. It was a very energized bunch, like Tyler James being the center, and just a bunch of the POW guys yelling on resets, just obnoxious in a good way. And so our placement it was like around 7th or 8th.
That's awesome.
And that pushed us up, and the group just barely squeaked into finals that year. So we
That
were
must
the
have been a
first
hype.
on.
That must
have been a
yeah,
great
that
hype.
was a hype. So it was the fun part about that. I'm just now remembering all this stuff. Is we got to the park for finals warm up, but everybody was there to watch lots. We were the first ones rolling up, and so we were playing music, and just everybody starts following us.
Yeah.
They're ready to watch drums, and we were just ready to celebrate and have a good time. It was kind of over at that point. I think we overhyped for sure. But yeah, it was a great experience. Eric Shriver was the caption head that year, and that's when I learned a lot about sound quality and in detailing just the sound, the approach. And it didn't necessarily, I originally I thought it would all be about playing advanced vocabulary, but a lot more of the time is spent on alignment of just straight up triplets and trying to balance and blend that sound. And so that totally flipped the switch for me too. It's like, oh,
Yeah, because as a young student, what would you assume? You would assume
Right.
it's the opposite. Like you're gonna get into like the more complicated, like and no, it's more foundational.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Having a great sound quality. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was our main thing every day. Try to find that sound, and then apply it to everything else,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So.